Hi everybody, welcome to my presentation 1. My name is Chelsea Duran. Today I'm going to be sharing with you concepts of international conflict when applied to the Syrian civil war. Now this war is huge, it's been going on for a few years now, and when I first walked into it, I had no idea what was going on. All these articles saying all these different things. So we're going to start with a little background information for you, just to make sure you understand. Along with this slide, I have attached a link to a YouTube video outlining the entire conflict from the start of it to where it is now. I will give you a little rundown real quick, real brief to save some time in my presentation, but I did include this link just for you to make sure that you really understand where this is headed. This conflict is huge. It's grown more than just a civil war. The name is really misleading, but I've attached it for you also in the link. If you go to the YouTube video itself, there's a link attached underneath in the comments kind of section, and you will be able to see the video link there as well to make sure you can go check it out if you really want to. So the way this conflict started is originally between the rebels and President Bashar al-Assad of Syria. And the spark that really lit the flame was when Assad launched violent attacks on peaceful demonstrators. This outraged demonstrators and really threw this civil war into action. The people of Syria were not putting up with it anymore. And today, this conflict has grown to way more than a civil war, like I mentioned before. It's currently divided into 4 different sides, all of which are fighting for different regions, which is why it kind of gets complex, and why I really strain that you want to go watch that video. One side is the Kurds. They are fighting for autonomy from Assad, as well as fighting against ISIS. President Assad is backed by Russia, Iran, and the Hezbollah militia from Iran, for Assad to stay in power over the rebels. ISIS is backed by no one, obviously, because they are a terrorist group, but they're fighting Al-Qaeda, the rebels, and Kurds especially, and the U.S. For their own mini-state. The rebels are backed probably by the most amount of people. They're backed by President Trump and President Obama when he was in office, the Gulf states, Jordan, Turkey, and they're fighting against Assad, obviously, for the violent attacks on the people of Syria, as well as to counter the support that is being given to Assad. That's the main reason the United States stepped in, as well as those Gulf states. They wanted to counter the power and prestige and help that Assad was getting from Russia, especially. So continuing on, we're going to start about the variety of conflicts occurring within the Syrian civil war. Like I said, it's more than a civil war, but we're going to start there. Fighting between Assad and the rebels, that's obviously civil war. It's a conflict between powers inside of Syria for control over Syria. Now today there are more than 100 rebel groups. Some are fighting against each other, some are fighting against Assad. Main goal is everyone wants power in Syria, but they're fighting for who is going to get that power. Another type of conflict involved is low-intensity conflict. This is seen the United States recently using bomb attacks against Assad. President Trump back in 2017 released bomb attacks for Assad's use of chemical weapons on his people. It's outraged Trump, and, well, he went into action. As we know, President Trump, he doesn't really hold back. It's also seen in Iran-backed military groups called the Hezbollah. I don't know if I said that right, just bear with me, invading to fight along Assad against the rebels. So we're seeing low-intensity conflict joining on both sides. The United States, with the help of Great Britain as well, has also released like a little air raids against Al-Qaeda as well as ISIS to keep terrorist groups at bay. And then, like I said, the attacks on Assad were mostly for those chemical weapons. So they're low-intensity conflict. They're not releasing total warfare. The main goal of the conflict is to get their way, what they want out of it. Now, the individual level of analysis of conflict within the Syrian war. There's 3 individuals, well, 4 actually, that have played a big role in this war. We're going to start with Vladimir Putin. He's acting in personal interest. A few articles I've read have said that Vladimir Putin is working so closely to keep Assad in power mostly because he wants to look like a good ally. He wants to get a stronger footing in the Middle East than the United States, which isn't that hard because the Middle East does not have tons of allies over. U.S. does not have tons of allies in the Middle East. Sorry there, but Putin is trying to get a footing there to get over the United States. So he's acting in personal interest, staying true to his allies, staying true to Assad, sending forces, sending money, sending supplies, because he wants to make himself look like a better ally and have more people allied for him and with him. President Trump and President Obama are really acting in response. They don't like the use of chemical weapons. They don't like that Assad has attacked his own people. And they're acting in response to Assad's actions. That's what those military airstrikes are for. That's why there was a CIA mission to train rebel troops, because they don't like Assad, and it almost seems personal in a way. That they have found that these attacks are not okay and are really taking it personally. President Bashar al-Assad is the third individual. He's probably played the biggest role, I'd want to say. He will not back down. The United Nations have made multiple attempts to try to get him to sign a peace treaty with the rebels, and he will not do it. He has used chemical weapons. He has decided to do all these things. And I've tagged this little cartoon image in here. It makes sense to me now that I know so much about the Syrian civil war, but this is President Assad with the chemical weaponry. It says, "Do not cross." And he keeps crossing all these lines, and you'll see President Obama there and such. But he's crossing all these lines, but he will not back down. He's pushing all these buttons. And the reason that I feel like the Syrian civil war has grown to such a large conflict and such a greater than a civil war is because he really has pushed the buttons. And it's him personally. I don't really know if Syria has a board of committee members like the United States does of, oh no, President, don't do this, but it's been a wild ride. So lastly, we're going to talk about weapons of mass destruction and their impact on the Syrian civil war. Like I've said, chemical weapons have played a very large role in the way that this war has unfolded and actually has caused this war to get bigger. Chemical weapons are the reason the United States even decided to get involved. Like I said, chemical weapons are used by Assad and the public. There have been a noted 161 attacks in recent reports from 2016. Reports also show approximately 1,500 civilian casualties from these attacks. This is really considered a violation of just war rules, like discussed about in previous chapters. And like I said, has caused countries like the United States to directly attack Assad because of their outward frustration and use of weapons of mass destruction. It's grown this war. Other countries are paying attention to it, and it's really become an issue. So these are my sources. I want to thank you guys for listening to me. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to shoot me an email. I've actually really enjoyed learning about all this stuff, and I really hope to see more, talk more, and discuss more with you all in the future. Have a nice one, you guys.